Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have here the great Silvana Richardson. Thank you very much
Thank you
for
very much for
the
inviting me.
invitation. So let's get started. So in a speech you gave at a Cambridge press conference, you mentioned that promoting and participating in teacher development is the most significant aspect of leadership in professional development. Do you believe there is something that gets in the way of leaders participating in teacher development?
Yes, absolutely. The first thing I'd like to say is that is a finding, it's not my own thinking, but it's a finding from a meta-analysis conducted by Robinson a couple of years ago. And yes, I certainly do believe that there are three things that get in the way. One is the leader's own perception that promoting and participating in teacher development is not a priority. It's surprising when I talk to managers and leaders to see how many people don't think that that's even important. The other one for me is that leaders have multiple and competing demands on their time. And, you know, most leaders are really very, very busy. And if you are busy and you don't, that's a dangerous combo, if you like. You know, if you think on the one hand you're very busy, and on the other hand you think that that is not a priority, you will not prioritize promoting and participating in professional development for teachers. But also I think sometimes those who manage and lead on teacher development are in the squeezed middle management. And sometimes it's their own sort of leaders and managers' views that this is not what they should be doing, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of directors of studies and people working with teachers are seen as it's not a very nice expression, but as glorified as administrators, you know. People who just timetable and manage and not necessarily lead on teacher development. So I think that's what I've seen in my experience are, if you like, the barriers to engaging more deeply with professional development.
I see. That makes total sense. Yes. Well, from your experience in observing and working alongside professionals at different hierarchical levels in a learning institution, what does poor leadership look like?
Well, I think there are many. I've been working for a long time, over 30 years. So I've been very lucky to have really good leaders, but I've also encountered, nobody's perfect. I would say a lot of leaders lack strategic vision, and probably because of how busy they are and how they are basically operating. So a lot of the work that they do is day-to-day operations. It's very difficult to find time and space and to prioritize, strategic vision. And a leader without strategic vision is not really a leader. The other one is sometimes a lack of ambition, and it's well intended. It's trying not to make teachers' lives, more complicated than they already are.
I see.
But a lot of the time, there's a kind of lack of ambition, of a sense of, in a nice way, if you see what I mean, that the standards of our organization should be high, and this is because it's good for the learners and it's good for everybody. There's also some leaders lack good delegation skills, and they end up micromanaging and over controlling, and that's not what a leader should be doing, really. Sometimes it kind of, some leaders lack a good and deep understanding of what it means to lead change, in terms of what that means, in terms of getting staff buy-in and how to plan, manage and evaluate implementation. Any deep and meaningful change is a really long game. And before you walk one step, you need to have staff, teachers buy-in. Or whoever else is relevant, and not just charge ahead with a change. It's not going to work. In other cases, it's poor communication skills, poor people skills, and sometimes no interest or no knowledge in certain parts of the learning organization. People with one specific background are not terribly interested in what the other side of the organization, if you like, or the other departments are doing. And those are things that I've had to grapple with in my time.
I see. Well, from what you've observed in teacher training, what are the top 3 skills of a successful developing teacher?
Again, a very interesting question. And I think the answer to that question varied over time. Earlier on in my career, I would have said something along the lines of the ability to relate to the students and the ability to stand up and survive. Those are really important, but now I'm more demanding. And I would say, as I get older, I think that a good teacher is also, and fundamentally, a good planner. That a teacher needs to understand what strategies, what activities, what content, what materials promote good learning, and to be able to choose accordingly. And a lot of good teaching is good planning. It becomes good teaching. Also, the ability to listen to the students and to react properly, appropriately. So giving them for example, to be able to give them adequate and helpful feedback, language updates. I have seen for a long time now a lot of what I call activity management, where teachers just set up tasks. I think a really important skill for developing teachers is to learn to be more alive to what the students are doing and pay more attention to what the students are doing, as opposed to how I'm setting the task and praising and just praising. And finally, the ability to give students the right level of challenge and engagement. I think there's a lot, I've seen quite a lot of edutainment of late, and edutainment and fun, nice, but it may or may not result in learning, whereas engagement results in learning. Well, it doesn't always, it's a prerequisite for learning. But I think, a teacher who aims high and demands high is a good teacher. And I think that those are the skills that I like to work with developing teachers.
I see. That's a very nice thing that you said. It's the confusion sometimes between fun and engagement, which could be fun, but it's not just fun for the sake of fun, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Well, can you give an example of a solid, well-executed, research-oriented lesson that you have observed?
Yes. We've been doing quite a bit of research and application here in the organization where I work at Bell. And I've seen quite a lot of the teachers actually applying what we have been learning together to their own practice. So things that I've seen that have made a difference to learning and to learners, I think the use of assessment for learning strategies, making the learning more visible to both the students themselves, but also to the teachers. So rather than just throwing the concept check question at the air and the strongest and fastest learners just shouting out the answers, making sure that that students are given time to think, and that teachers get students to use mechanisms so that they can all answer the question. Like, for example, the use of mini whiteboards and all displaying their answers and the products of their thinking, or giving them time to discuss the questions and then produce a sort of more considerate answer together. Nominations so that, and random nominations so that the stronger students don't dominate. The use of success criteria, where we're actually helping students succeed by saying this is what a good answer looks like, or getting the students to identify what a good answer or a good reply or a good task or a good outcome looks like, working it out together, and then using that as a basis to produce the work and to evaluate the work.
I see. Right. Can you give an example of a close to ideal professional development program in practice in an institution?
Well, one of the things that I really am following with a lot of interest is Champion Teachers. I don't know if you've heard of Champion Teachers. Champion Teachers is a program that was originally designed in Chile. And I think it was originally designed by supported by the British Council. And it's helping teachers, supporting teachers in action research cycles, where there is a long element of trying to understand their context and the uniqueness of their context, and trying to address their context and the problems or the puzzles that they have in their own context, and by trying to find their own solutions and solutions that work for them. And in that process, giving teachers a confidence that they can research their own context and that they can develop knowledge that is context appropriate. So I'm a very keen supporter of the work of Champion Teachers. You know, all the work that and all the writing and all the reports that they have done.
I see. Well, finally, my final question. Well, is becoming a teacher trainer something you've always aspired? What were some of the challenges that you came across?
Yes, I think very, very early on in my career, I was a very premature trainer because very early on in my career, I realized that while teaching English was interesting, I wanted to teach content, and because I was fascinated by methodology and how languages are learned and how students learn, I thought that the way to go for me was to become a teacher of teachers. So, you know, as soon as actually, even before I graduated, I started doing courses on how to become a teacher trainer because it was an area that really fascinated me. In terms of the challenges that I came across, I think that the hardest challenge has been, and sometimes it continues to be, discrimination for being a native speaker of a language other than English. That, you know, particularly when I came to the UK to live, you know, that really set me back quite. It was very difficult to find jobs. It was very difficult for people to appreciate that even though I had a different educational background, different doesn't mean less or more.
Yeah.
It was equally, you know, valid. But also that because I had learned English, I had an experiential as well as having studied, you know, etc. I had an experiential knowledge from the inside of what it is like to be a learner, a trainee, and a
Yeah.
teacher. So, and many times I felt that if you were not part of the in crowd, you lost out in terms of jobs, in terms of promotion, in terms of your voice being heard, in terms of having a different voice that was equally valid. But thankfully, times have changed, or are beginning to change, I think. I'm in a different place now, but I do know that that is also a challenge for many teachers who are considering becoming teachers of teachers. So there's a lot to be done.
Okay. Well, Silvana, I have to say that I admire your work very much. I have shared with a couple of friends of mine that I was going to interview you, and they were like, oh my God, yes, they were very happy. And once more, I appreciate you accepting the invitation. All right?
No, a real pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me.
No problem. And for you, those who are watching us, if you would like more indications of next videos, subscribe to our channel. All right? See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.